The Body Snatchers, a novel released in 1955, written by Jack Finney, has been adapted to film officially 4 times. It also has other films that were loosely kind of borrowing from its themes, like, for instance, The Faculty, also a film called The Seed People. In 1956, it was first adapted as Invasion of the Body Snatchers, starring Kevin McCarthy. And in 1978, it was adapted again. This one stars Donald Sutherland and Leonard Nimoy. Most people consider this to be the best one, myself included. But it was also adapted in 1993. I don't have a copy of that one, but there hasn't been a 4K release yet. I have been considering getting the Blu-ray, but I know once I get that, there's going to be a 4K announcement immediately, more than likely. But the 1993 one stars Gabriel Anwar and Forrest Whitaker in a supporting role, and that one takes place on an army base, and it's actually a pretty good adaptation of it. The one we're going to talk about today is the 2007 and the most recent version of it, called The Invasion. This one stars Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig, and most people consider this to be the worst adaptation of it, but we're going to talk about it today, and we're going to take a look at this new Arrow 4K UHD release. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Now, 2007, this one, I remember when it came out, and I don't think I was ready for another one, even though 1978 one, it's been a long time since this one was made, but this one was such an effective version. And the Body Snatchers one, the one with Forrest Whitaker in it, I thought it was decent, and it hadn't been that, I mean, I guess it had been longer than it seems, because it was 93 and this is 2007, but it didn't seem like it had been enough time, and I don't think it was people just kind of weren't ready to watch this film, and in the way that it's done. Now, I think I did watch it, like, when it came out. I think maybe I rented it on DVD or something like that, and it didn't leave a lasting impression at the time. Now, it does have Nicole Kidman. Now, Daniel Craig is in this. Now, this was Daniel Craig right before he became famous for playing James Bond. Actually, while they were filming this movie, he got the call about James Bond, and it kind of interrupted production a little bit because he had to go do some tests for James Bond or something, but they were able to work around his schedule. But really, this came out around the same time, so people kind of were more aware about who Daniel Craig is. Really, though, upon this watch, I did have a better appreciation for the film. Now, Arrows did a really good job on this right here, and we're going to take a look at the contents within here in just a little bit after we talk about the plot for a bit. Now, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, typically, usually they come from a pod. And the pods, I guess they thought maybe they'd be made look a little cheesy for this one here. And it seems to be more of a virus in this one. It comes from a spaceship. It crashes on Earth, and then people become infected with this kind of a virus. And once they become infected, they're good until they sleep. And when they sleep, they suddenly become kind of almost wrapped in, not really a cocoon, but their faces look like cocoon. It covers their whole eyes, and it kind of reforms their identity. They seem to keep their previous thoughts and memories, but they lose their emotion. And then they seem to have kind of a hive mind where they're all connected in a way. And so there are some people, in rare cases, who are immune to this. And the people who are immune to this, they have to deal with, which means they probably have to kill them to get rid of them, because they can't have people around who aren't part of the hive mind. They can't have people around who aren't going to conform and be part of the group. Those people have to die in order for there to be peace and harmony among all the drones. This was directed by a German director, Oliver Hirschbagel. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Maybe not, but so he directed a film called Downfall. That was a film that is about Hitler's last days. And he often directs thought-provoking stuff, and I think he really wanted to make this more thought-provoking. He didn't seem very interested in the special effects, and I guess he was hoping that the performances... Nicole Kidman is really good in this. But he was hoping the performance by Nicole Kidman would really elevate this to a different level, and people wouldn't be as concerned with the special effects and more concerned with the performances and just the psychology behind what's going on. Now, there's a character played by Veronica Cartwright in this film. Veronica Cartwright had a supporting role in the original Alien film, and she also had a fairly major supporting role in this 78 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Now, in this version, Nicole Kidman's character is a psychologist, and she's one of her clients, and she starts to tell her, Veronica Cartwright's character starts to tell her about what's going on with her husband. Her husband, who used to be abusive, now is not. She says he hardly pays her any attention. He is very emotionless, and which I guess might be a good thing in her situation, but she's very concerned about it. And the worst thing that he's done is apparently the dogs don't like people who have been body snatched. Apparently, then the dogs won't stop barking, and they're aggressive to him. And eventually, the husband killed the dog, snapped its neck without emotion, and then threw it in the trash. Now, this has got Veronica Cartwright's character very upset and concerned, and these sort of things start to happen in all around. Now, Nicole Kidman's character is divorced. Her ex-husband plays a major character in the film. He's one of the people who is earlier infected by this virus, but she doesn't know this yet. And her son, who turns out to be immune to it, she drops him off for the weekend to stay with his dad, who him and his new stepmom or new wife, they both have been infected with this virus. Now, Daniel Craig plays Nicole Kidman's friend, who he is wanting to be her boyfriend, but she's kind of pushing back on that. But he is a biologist, and there's him and his friend, played by Jeffrey Wright, kind of she finds a specimen, and they start to take a look at it and do some investigation. Eventually, they become up. Jeffrey Wright's character comes up with a kind of an antidote to stop it, which plays into the ending. Now, a lot of the film is chase scenes, like Nicole Kidman trying to run away from people chasing her, and her getting her son and running and things of that nature. So there's a lot of chases, and there's a lot of, with all the body snatcher films, like trying to stay awake is a real problem. She has to drink Mountain Dew a bunch and trying to stay awake, take a bunch of pills, which eventually it's a struggle though. I mean, it's hard. It would be hard to be going through that. It's kind of also hard to watch because you might be watching it and it'll start to make you tired that these characters are struggling to stay awake. The very first scene is actually a scene that takes place later in the film, and it shows her inside of a store drinking Mountain Dew and like worried about something about to come and get her. And so it kind of starts out with that, and then it cuts to the past, where the space shuttle crashes. They apparently had some issues. The studio had some problems with what the director originally submitted and his ideas. They decided to hire some other people to reshoot some of his stuff, and especially the ending. And they probably did a re-edit of the beginning. They probably put this scene that happens later in the film at the beginning to make the beginning pop out more and be more eventful before it goes into the past, where it shows how the virus gets started. I'm not sure what the ending originally was supposed to be. I'm gonna talk about the ending to this one. I'm also going to talk about the ending to the 78 version and the original. Now, the original, like this one, had a different ending originally, but then they changed it where they were able to defeat the pod people in the original one. Now, spoilers, of course. The 1978 one, they lose. The body snatcher pod people end up winning in this one. Now, my assumption is that the director originally had intended for them to lose in this one as well, but the studio had a different. They knew the audience at the time probably weren't going to like that, so they changed the ending. They made it more exciting. They have the antidote that Jeffrey Wright's character has, kind of like in War of the Worlds. They were able to stop the body snatchers, and really the people were cured because they have a cure for it. It's more of a virus in this one, so they're able to give them the antidote, and they come back to normal. It seems a little anticlimactic here in the film at the end. Now, the very last scene has Daniel Craig's character, who becomes infected later in the film. He's sitting at the table reading a newspaper, talking about how there's a bunch of wars and bad stuff going on, and Nicole Kidman looks over at him. Now, Nicole Kidman, who has saved her son would have been killed because of this immunity situation, but she starts to have, in her head, you hear someone else talking, like from a previous scene, about how now with this new pod people, or the body, not really pods in this one, but the body snatch people, there's not going to be any more violence or war, because once they got rid of everyone else who might be a problem, it would probably, they were saying it would be harmony throughout everywhere, like no more war, no more violence. And so she seems to almost, her thinking that, I guess, and is really the director's way of saying, hey, it might have been a good thing for the pod people or the body snatching people to take over, because then we won't have all this other shitty stuff happening in the world. And so they wanted to kind of leave you with that thought-provoking thought, and it doesn't really play well in the film. It kind of seems like it's a tacked-on thought, and there's no real lead up to that type of thought, and it doesn't hit very hard. It just kind of, it leaves you like, oh, that was the last scene of the film. That was my thought of it. I think they really wanted you to think more about it, because I completely disagree with the idea of taking away emotions. I mean, obviously emotions hurt, but it kind of what makes us human in a way. Like, you got to take the good with the bad, and who knows, like, what they may have, trying to be harmonious, and might have ended up wrecking everything even quicker. So let's take a look at this new Arrow release of The Invasion. Now, first off, I really like this new cover art. I think this really grabs my attention, and this like nice blue color grading that we're going to talk about here more in just a minute. As you can see here, it does have an HDR, which helps the film. It kind of brings out a lot of the colors in it. So let's take a look. Now, I went ahead and reversed. There's a reversible insert on this, and this is the original cover art for the film. It's just Daniel Craig and Nicole Kidman in a very okay cover. I like the redness going on and the kind of monochrome going on, but it's just two faces there, and this is so much, to me, this is a lot better. This is much more ominous of a film. Now, that's something too about this movie. It does have a nice kind of, I guess, ominous feel to it, and while you're watching it, you do kind of feel starting to see people change and trying to get away from it, and it does a nice job. It's probably not as good, not as iconic as the other ones, but I think it does a nice, very, very subtle. They're trying to be more subtle with it, and that's what the director was trying to do. But it cost a lot more money than any of the other ones did, unfortunately. That's why they weren't able to make money on it. It bombed really bad. I think it cost about $65 million to make. A lot of that was probably, some of it was probably the reshoots, and then it made about $40 million at the box office, so it lost money. Now, Arrow, this is awesome here. This is a Jason X card. So Arrow's going to be releasing Jason X on 4K eventually. I'm looking forward to that. I've also seen some Jason Goes to Hell. I don't have that card, but that one's been, some other people have had that in their sets. In this Arrow version, and typically this is what they do, they only put a 4K disc in here. There's no Blu-ray, and it kind of sucks that they do that. Sometimes they'll release the Blu-ray separately or first. That way you have to double dip in order to get the Blu-ray and the 4K. Now there's a poster in here, and there's also a booklet. Let's take a look at this poster. Now this is a reversible poster. It has both. It has, on one side you have the new cover art, and on the back side you have the original. And it's nice for like Arrow. This is an Arrow limited edition release, and it's nice that you can fold it up and put it back inside. It's not so good that it has the creases in it, but it takes up less space just to put it back in the case. There's a booklet here. This is "Don't sleep, don't go home, I'll find you." Something, but there's Nicole Kidman. There's Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig. And there's some essays and stuff that people have written in here. It's kind of a small booklet. It's not a very big one. It says, "Is it ever going to end?" And that's Daniel Craig's last line at the end, that he's like looking at the newspaper. Is it ever going to end, these wars or whatever? So let's talk about the transfer. This film was shot on 35mm film, which is quite impressive. And for 2007, it's kind of surprising that they went that route. Now, they did edit the film digitally, and they mastered the 2K. But here it looks really good. I really think that you see a lot of really nice textures throughout, especially on the close-ups of people. And as far as the film grain, it's very tight here. You don't hardly notice the film at all. you have to look really hard to see any film grain. And the black levels look fantastic. Now they did which the most standout thing to this film is the color grading. Now they had like around this 2007 era they did like to color grade pretty dramatically, and so most scenes are color graded in a kind of a blue teal color, like it looks something like this right here. Now it does have the grading. They did do a grading so they were able to separate the people's faces a little bit from the backgrounds to make it look their faces a little bit more of like their natural type of color, but it's still got somewhat of a blue on it. Now there's a lot of scenes, especially interior night scenes and some exterior day scenes, that are kind of an orange honey color. They're kind of more like this right here, where you got you kind of got like orange like this, and then it's like, hey, I'm honey color graded. Now this is the way they like to do some of the nighttime interior scenes. Now there are a few scenes that aren't color graded, and they're kind of a natural looking look to them, and some nice like normal skin tones to them. But it's kind of rare in the film. You don't have many of that type of stuff going on. It's mostly this, which has a nice effective look, and it kind of almost kind of a clinical type of blue look to it. And I kind of dig that a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and rate the film on a scale from 1 to 5. 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. I'm going to give it 3 stars. I might be being a little harsh, but I'm gonna lend it there. The movie was better than I remembered it. I did enjoy watching it. I think Nicole Kidman is terrific in it. I'm going to give Arrow Video a 4-star rating for their limited edition set here. Would have been nice to have a thick ass box set, like a box like this, maybe. But it works. I think it's nice when not every film has to have the badass box, but it's the smaller one with the slipcover. It works pretty good. So in conclusion, I think that this version of the Body Snatchers is probably the worst of the 4, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. I think it kind of gets a little bit of people a little too harsh with it, and 3 stars might be a little harsh. I probably maybe leaning towards 3.5, but I think again it is like really, it's a lot different, and they went for less special effects and more psychological stuff in this film. Anyway, if you've seen the film, or if you've seen Arrow's new 4K limited edition Arrow release, let me know what your thoughts are on it. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Like this video. I'm Dave Watkins. Thanks for watching.